that's y'all's problem with Frak. I'm serious. Dragons Rising decides to introduce this delightful little snake boy, and for whatever reason, there's a sect of the fandom that seems to refuse to give the guy a chance. Look, I understand Dragons Rising has its problems. Trust me, I understand. But of all the things to criticize it for, Frak?
Yes! The passing on of pie knowledge! I have binders full of recipes!
This is your sticking point?
You were so nice before! Can't we all just be cool?
Why? How did we get here? The Ninjago ninja lineup seems like it's perpetually in a state of flux, with side characters graduating to main ninja team members every couple of seasons. Heck, the franchise's main character was a late addition to the team. But despite that, it seems like the diversity of the lineup, especially considering the varied fantasy race makeup of this world, has been surprisingly limited. Sure, we've had robots and ghosts and part dragons and gamer girls, but despite all of these not technically being human, they are humanoid. They all look human, they're shaped like they're human. For all intents and purposes, they're human. Really, the first jump forward in this department was with Ryu at the beginning of Dragons Rising. He's this cute little dragon guy who very quickly gets a lot bigger. He is an official ninja on the team. He's learning spinjitzu with the best of them.
Good effort!
But he's also notably non-vocal. He just makes adorable little dragon noises. The goal is very clearly to make Ryu a fully fledged team member, core to the cast. He has character arcs and personalized storylines, but I don't think it's necessarily been as effective as the writers would like it to be. He still reads more as an animal sidekick for the team and is an afterthought a lot of the time. The best that I can say for him is that he functions as a Pascal for the series. No, my little Pascal, he's in the other room because he was with my Halloween costume this year. Here, let me go get him. But even then, like, Pascal wasn't exactly drastically affecting the direction of the plot. This show runs pretty heavily on exposition, and Ryu not being able to participate on that front, I think, limits his potential quite a bit. He just doesn't feel as established a personality as Eren or Sora or even Pascal. Really, he's here because we have the word dragon in the title of our show for marketing purposes, and we need to justify it somehow. So that's why in Dragons Rising Season 3, we got what felt like our first fully fledged non-human ninja team member, Frak, the Serpentine Ninja.
The snake who shakes and breaks, he's Frak!
The short version is that he was friends with Eren growing up. They geeked out about the ninja together, and he has since gained the elemental power of Quake, which is the power of shaking things up, I guess.
You're looking at the elemental master of Quake.
Is he named after the mining process, which is known to cause an increase in earthquakes? I really hope not. He starts out sort of naively working for the bad guys.
Have you used one of those wolf masks with the gong? Oh, I wish!
Before finally reaching a breaking point, getting kicked out, and subsequently taken in by the ninja. Interestingly enough though, despite my making a whole video defending him now, I didn't really care for him initially. When this was all we knew about him in season 2, I really didn't have much of an opinion. While there was certainly some potential there, he felt just a little one note. About half of his screen time was just him geeking out about the ninja, a lot of time with Eren.
You're here with the ninja? Told you wouldn't believe it.
Behavior that we already got from Eren earlier in the show. So he didn't feel particularly well defined apart from him. He just is Eren, but serpentine, I guess. I did like the fact that he saw value in Roz's teachings about strength and domination and didn't back down from defending what he knew had helped him progress in his abilities.
That doesn't sound right. Everything Roz taught me to do has built me up.
But also that he was able to see through those teachings enough to reject Roz once push came to shove. I guess I liked that he was humble and curious enough to go ask Cole for advice on his element. I also really like how chill Cole was about giving him the information.
Can I ask a question about your earth power?
Sure.
Like, these are all nice ideas, but they aren't especially explored or built on this season, so it was hard to see Frak as more than just like this ninja fanboy who is Aaron's friend.
The Cole likes my pie recipes?
So I was pretty indifferent altogether. I figured he would just be another side character who would help out if the ninja were ever in his area, like Euphrasia or Roby. So I was really surprised in season 3 when it's revealed he has joined the ninja team.
I'm gonna mess you goons up!
And you brought some guy.
Here he is, training at the monastery, taking direction from Lloyd. This guy is making the jump to main character? Not even a stopover in regular supporting character territory with Geo and Frohickey, just straight. Did they need an Aaron replacement that badly?
I like that enthusiasm. Reminds me very much of Aaron.
And thank goodness, this season wastes no time on building on those ideas that they previously put in place. The first thing we see from him is his attempting to complete ninja training while still utilizing Roz's methods.
That was a little intense.
Thank you, yes. I channeled all the strength of my rage and hate.
He has not magically switched sides. There is in fact an adjustment period here, and they're acknowledging that.
You hate our obstacle course?
No, I mean, I channeled the hate inside me to access my potential. Isn't that how you do it?
And I think most endearingly, we see a quality of his which instantly aligns him with my personal favorite ninja, Pixel.
They found us!
Zane looks different.
I know she's not a ninja in the specific sense, she's a samurai, but she is part of the ninja team. So in a broader definition, I don't have to explain myself to you. Frak, much like Pixel, more than anyone else on the team, is just here doing his best.
I got it!
He knows how to do the Roz method of things, so he's gonna do his best at that. And if that's wrong, then he's gonna do his best to figure out whatever you've got for him.
I don't really understand, but that's okay. I'll stay up all night practicing until I get it right.
He wants to contribute to the team. He wants to be useful.
Half the battle is up here.
You want me to headbutt the bamboo?
Unlike Pixel, his attempts at helping end up sort of backfiring, but
It's a cave-in. I shouldn't have moved those rocks.
he's trying, okay? That's what matters. He's got reservations and fears and will provide a little bit of pushback,
For the record, I think this is a mistake.
Noted.
but he's flexible and persistent and willing to internalize feedback.
I want to apologize.
He's just doing his best. He's happy to be here. He's just a little guy, a little snake guy with little snake freckles. Look at him! And you know what? I love that. I love myself a character who is actively looking to better themselves.
Maybe this is what you were teaching me earlier, Lloyd?
I don't remember teaching anything about bizarre puppet fighting.
They do throw in one episode that he believes in a number of conspiracy theories, so
Intelligent George claims gravity is made up.
Can you prove it's not?
not a fan of that character trait. But that does lead to this scene of him facing a fear of his head on.
Intelligent George was right about this puppet!
And I really love his whole attitude of, I know what I have to do. I'm terrified of doing it, but I also know I'm going to do it anyway because it is something that needs doing.
Oh no, I know what I need to do, but I don't like it.
I don't know, I find that mindset relatable. This scene of a snake man dislodging a magic sword from animating a giant puppet was very relatable.
What happened to facing your primal fears?
I faced them and lost. I'm now a million times more afraid of puppets.
Season 3 also gives us some interesting interpersonal dynamics to mess with Frak. Luckily, Aaron is out of the plot, so we get to see him interact with some of our other characters. We get a little plot line about his people-pleasing tendencies and need to sort of prove himself to the team. Sora finds this incredibly annoying. The two of them are butting heads throughout the episode.
Push with your knees, not your back.
I know!
And by the end, Sora has to learn that Frak just needs that greater sense of acceptance within this new group.
He's just trying to be helpful. Ease up on him a little.
And Frak has to learn that this new team of his doesn't require him to be perfect to be valuable.
I was trying to show you I'm not just Roz's stooge.
We know that.
In fact, what they need most out of him might just be a friend.
I'm not very good at making friends.
That's cute. Like, I feel like the ending got cut off a little early, but it's still cute. He and Cole also have a bit of bonding time this season.
How's that? You're really improving.
It's not as structured, but you do get to see the similarities between these two on full display. Both the connection that their powers give them, Earth and Quake being extremely adjacent, but also just how chill these two are, how willing they are to go wherever the plot takes them and start doing whatever needs doing.
What could be down there? Let's check it out right now!
These two are great, and Kai even gets thrown in there for an extra sprinkle of flavor.
Hope this works. Unless whatever you're pulling up is evil, in which case I hope you fail.
It's a good time, even if it is centered on a highly disappointing reveal that we waited over a season for, but that's not on Frak.
I'll fill you in later.
And that's most of what he's got going on plot-wise. He goes with Sora and Wildfire to go, like, whack bells. Apparently Frak has vocal training.
Sorry, I just habitually harmonize in thirds.
This whole thing is a bit of a waste, but that's like the whole finale this season, so, you know, that's not a him problem.
No, it's...
Ta-da!
Yeah, it's... Ta-da! You go up after.
Really, what I like most about this character is the baked-in layers of depth just waiting to be tapped. This character is Serpentine and grew up in Ninjago City. Already, that gives us so much information about him. The Serpentine were the villains of the first season of Ninjago. A whole race of people locked away from the rest of society for the presumed safety of everyone else. And while there were, for sure, a couple of crazy snakes down there, the vast majority of the Serpentine were just regular people trying to live their lives. Over the years, the show has kind of come to terms with the fact that locking up an entire faction of people indefinitely was a bad move. That was a bad decision that characters in the past made. Not good.
The Serpentine tried to warn the land dwellers, but they wouldn't listen. They thought we were the enemy.
In season 3, we see that when left to their own devices, they have no quarrel with the rest of the world. But still, within the show, they remain segregated, not really seen as full members of Ninjagan society. The Serpentine are an oppressed group within this universe.
Search his bag!
No, this is harassment. I've done nothing wrong.
Just based on Frak's coloring and the picture we get of his parents, we can assume that his parents were from two different snake tribes, meaning he for sure was born after all of the different tribes were released from their tombs, and that places his childhood right on the transition point of Serpentine being newly free agents in society, but still largely living underground by choice as a path of least resistance and survival.
Us Serpentine are brilliant at underground spaces. It's just like the Ninjago sewers.
He carries the weight of his people's fresh and very dark past, but also is a member of this new generation who is more open to going out and interacting with the world, befriending humans, trying to integrate into society despite the pushback they will inevitably face. You might think this whole racism angle seems a bit heavy for this show, and they haven't directly addressed it with Frak, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for it to come up. Geo is a mixed species character abandoned by his society, essentially, because of their speciesism.
Munces and geckos have always hated each other. So, no one wanted me.
It's a topic that's handled very roundaboutly, and it's all quarantined to the past, but I don't see why they couldn't venture into similar territory for a potential future Frak plotline. We already have these bullies in this flashback immediately latching on to his being a snake to insult him.
This has nothing to do with you, snake boy.
I feel like it's a no-brainer to have this character share his experience with discrimination at some point. All of this history baked into his backstory, I think, explains Frak's adaptability quite well, but also his falling in with Roz. Roz was willing to work with him and wanted him to improve. That would obviously be appealing to someone who's been rejected by the world at large for most of his life.
You have to meet my master. I was so clueless and scared by my powers, and he really helped me out.
But Frak has also learned to be skeptical of the world, which gives him the foresight to leave Roz when his expectations become overly toxic.
It was a good fight. A fair fight.
All of this put together, you have a character who has spent significant time idolizing the ninja and fighting against the biases of the society which they defended, as well as studying and finding value in the teachings of our villains, while also being explicitly rejected and ostracized by them. Frak has the potential to be one of the most complex and layered characters within this show just based off of the little bit we know about his backstory. He's this weird little intersection of almost all of the different ideologies put forth by the characters of this show. And to see where someone who's been exposed to all of these different viewpoints ends up landing in our important moral decisions is really interesting to watch. For example, at the end of season 3, part 1, Eren decides to go back to Roz to continue using his help to resurrect his parents. Our big story move is that Sora decides to go with him. Frak does not.
Eren, you know better.
Arguably, Frak should be most prepared to jump ship to go watch over Eren. He's been with Roz before, he survived just fine. He knows what to expect and seemed to like working with him for the most part.
Maybe we're talking about a different guy named Roz, cause he's been nothing but good to me.
He's Eren's oldest friend and has been with the ninja for the shortest period of time.
You're Eren's old best friend, I'm Eren's new best friend.
I'm Eren's always best friend.
It seems like he would be the one with the least friction against him if he wanted to go follow his friend. But he doesn't. Precisely because he's been there before. Even though he knows there is value in some of Roz's methods, he also knows firsthand that he will not stop pushing you until you reach that immoral breaking point.
I'm training him like I was training you.
Until I learned who you really are.
Maybe he doesn't know specifically that Roz is going to try and kill Sora, but he knows that whatever road they're on, it ends in some sort of act which is inevitably going to dim your soul.
Roz is a master manipulator. He could be brainwashing Eren and Eren would have no clue.
Sora, on the other hand, is acting primarily just from loyalty and a sense of guilt about supposedly driving Eren off in the first place. Which is why she doesn't really factor any risk evaluation into her decision. It's about proving to Eren that she values their bond. Period. Nothing else matters.
Together forever. Right?
Frak does not possess that same sense of absolute loyalty, which is fascinating to me. I want to see so much more of this guy. He's already interesting and there's just a ton of untapped potential. So, why do so many people seem to hate him? Maybe hate is overblowing it a little bit, but for a fandom with such a thriving stan community, Frak has been given a surprisingly cold shoulder. Plenty of people outwardly dislike him, find him annoying, and even more seem not to care for him in a more detached way, simply preferring that he weren't there for streamlining purposes. I've never seen a new protagonist in this show met with such a distantly uphill battle, and for the life of me, I don't understand why. This guy is cute. He's got a really sweet heart and a well-defined personality at this point. I can see the argument that he's maybe a little bit grating, but I don't know.
If you're worried, let me lead the way.
If that's your sticking point, like, I think you've got bigger fish to fry. The first reason I suspect for this lack of enthusiasm is just the timing of it all. Though he's introduced in season 2, Frak joins the team in season 3, and I don't know if you guys have heard, but season 3's reception was not ideal. For a lot of people, this season was the thing which shattered the illusion of this show potentially being some great masterwork, an illusion which, luckily enough, I never had. But when you have that moment of realization, it can be pretty crushing. So just on an associative level, Frak being at his most prominent when the show is at its worst isn't really doing him any favors. Now, I don't think he's really contributing to any of the season's main faults, but I do think that this is something souring people's opinions of him, which is unfortunate because, you know, that isn't really his fault. There are a lot of things that aren't his fault. One point that I've seen repeatedly brought up against him is that he makes the cast too big. And while I do agree with that sentiment broadly, like Dragon's Rising has a crazy huge cast, I fail to see why we're pinning this on Frak. Like, he's the main issue here. 10 main team members, that was fine. That was manageable. But the moment we add an 11th, that's the breaking point. Like, you really think that the Snake Boy with a solid character arc and connections to our villains and the past of one of our protagonists and a fresh perspective on things is really the thing hanging up our division of screen time here? More than, oh, I don't know, the half-dozen characters from our previous show that we're obligated to hold on to for marketing purposes? Or maybe the plethora of side characters that the writers have gotten weirdly attached to and insist on including a little bit more than they probably should? You really think Frak is more a waste of space than Zane or Pixel or Cole or Gandalaria or Roby? Like, I get that he's not necessarily pulling weight like Aaron and Sora are, but come on.
I am not sure how I got in this weird place.
If your argument is that the cast is too big, with Frak included, I also want to see a list of the 5 other main characters you would cut in order to streamline things. Another thing Frak seems to be unilaterally blamed for is his crush on Sora. The reason that I haven't mentioned this yet is that it hardly ever comes up.
Voila! Perfect in every way.
There are 3 real instances where the audience's attention is pointed towards this fact. Granted, they're all pretty cringeworthy, but they don't take up too much space. The first is maybe the clunkiest piece of dialogue in the whole show, where we learn about Frak's crush.
Nor if I had any additional luck trying to find the smartest and most attractive member of our team.
But Sora's right here.
What?
What? Nothing.
Second is when Frak says he's been worried about Sora.
Sora, I couldn't sleep. I was so worried about you.
You were?
Well, I mean, we all were. Not just me. I'm sure others couldn't sleep.
And last is our obligatory male gaze shot, where Frak decides he's maybe gonna tell Sora he likes her before immediately chickening out.
There's something I need to tell you.
What?
I ate all the yogurt in the monastery fridge.
You... What?
There are also a couple of little background moments if you're hunting for ship content, but that's really the only times that it's gonna be noticeable to the average viewer. And yeah, it's not great thus far. I'm not gonna try and defend this as good writing because it's not. If you find yourself upset at the writers for this disaster, then that's fair. Fine, be mad at the writers. But some people seem to be using this as grounds to dismiss Frak's character altogether. We've been talking about this guy for a while now. He's got a lot of other stuff going on. Just because he has one minor plotline that wasn't exactly executed well so far, you want to scrap him altogether? We have not progressed at all outside of the establishing that one character has a crush phase of this romance. That's the very first step. There is still plenty of room for this to develop. We have barely made it out of the exposition stage. We have one data point on our trend line. Frak likes Sora. That's it. What part of that seems unsalvageable to you? Is the fact that Sora doesn't have an immediate visible crush back on Frak really such a negative sign to you guys? Like, I know that's how romance has historically operated in Ninjago, but like, you've seen other romance stories, right? These things typically take some amount of time. Things can progress slowly sometimes. I know it's hard to wrap your head around, but they might be doing that here. The overly oblivious Adrian Agreste approach is always a good option, and probably the most obvious given our current trajectory. Frak has already established himself as a bit of a hopelessly nervous Marinette type, and I'd love to see Aaron scheming to help him out. Dude, the moment that Aaron finds out that Frak has a crush on Sora, he's gonna explode of happiness. His old best friend crushing on his new best friend, uniting all of his personal connections together in this celebration of love and sunshine, which he gets to help make happen. I need him to lose his mind over this. I need it. Honestly, we are well overdue for some proper wingman shenanigans in this franchise, and we've never really gotten the chance precisely because both people are always instantly in love. The closest I think we've gotten to this is the whole practice proposal in season 10, and I guess like Cole telling Lloyd to break things to impress girls.
If you want to impress her, you gotta act tough, like flex your muscles and stuff. Break things!
That's what we've been missing. I need another Aaron Wildfire team up, but this time they're scheming to get their friends together. They've also got a little bit of an enemies to lovers angle with all of the bickering.
Exactly. My gi color is subjectively cooler than yours.
Do you even know what's subjective?
Will you two knock it off?
I mean, come on. Sora sitting here like, oh, Frak is so annoying. I definitely cannot stand him.
I've got a really great cave sense.
I've got a really great cave sense. Okay.
Do you know how classic romance coded that is? This could also be one of those like really long slow burns where the guy likes the girl, but he doesn't want to jeopardize his friendship with the girl, so he crushes his feelings about her and forces distance, and meanwhile the girl is slowly falling in love with him, but thinks that he doesn't like her back because he's forcing that distance, and it's like tragic misunderstanding. Maybe Sora is purposefully being cagey and acting oblivious about all of this because she's even more of a nervous wreck about all of the romance stuff, and so is scared she's gonna screw it up if she directly acknowledges it, and so is just in denial mode. Or maybe, you know, on a more depressing note, she sees herself as unworthy of love subconsciously, and so is putting up blocks there because of her whole history. Or, you know, maybe she just hasn't thought about romance much because the world has been in jeopardy the entire time she's known this guy. Believe it or not, I think she might be a little bit distracted not knowing the status of her lifelong partner in everything. Point being, we're still in early days here. I don't know why so many people just assume this thing is already dead in the water. The other main argument I've seen against this relationship is that it means all of our main female characters would once again be a part of a romance plotline. And yeah, in a general big picture sort of way, that is a bit disappointing. But in an even generaler way, this is Frak's fault. Why? I do get that Frak would make Sora the last character to be put into a romantic relationship in the show, but that doesn't mean that our other couples don't share the responsibility here. If you presented me with both the slow burn romance between two lead characters who have each had time to establish themselves apart from each other, build up a bit of a platonic relationship with each other first, and the instantly fall in love side plot with a new character designed to be a love interest,
She might as well be wearing a t-shirt that says, I heart Roby.
I don't think Frak is our main problem here. Not to knock Roby Fire or anything, I love them too, they're cute, but like, based on this criteria.
Thank you, Wildfire. And I'm sure some of the other ninja helped.
And I don't want to come off like I'm arguing against more diverse female romance representation in the show. Not to appoint myself an authority figure or anything, but I have thought about this a little bit. It would be great to have a central female character who does not get wrapped up in a romance arc. And who knows, maybe Bonzel or Euphrasia will be upgraded to main character status next, and they'll be the single Pringle we've been craving. There's still time, but I think it is worth noting how progressive Dragons Rising has already been on this front, especially compared to the original show. Most of her time is spent, and I'm not kidding here, bonding with Nia over being in a love triangle. This show started out with two new protagonists, one male, one female, and the writers completely avoided shipping them together. That's so huge. The fact that it took 3 seasons before romance even became a topic of discussion for Sora, that is frankly insane. Even Roby Fire is a bit of a subversive gender swap of the classic female love interest character that this franchise has leaned on for so long, and the fact that it's such a quirky romance between the non-typically feminine girl and the conventionally attractive guy, and he likes her for her non-feminine traits, is something of note, at least for this series. I mean, not to mention Lost shipping.
Fancy meeting you here.
For this franchise to even be implying a gay romance for one of the original ninja is huge. Is there room for improvement? Of course, there always is, but they have given us a ton of steps forward. If the biggest sin that this show ends up committing on this front is that they gave us a multi-season romance between two of our main characters that was a little bit clunky, then I think we're gonna be alright. A lot of people seem convinced that the only reasonable way out of this plotline is if it ends up being a lesson about guys not always getting the girl. Sometimes she's just not interested, fellas, and that's not the end of the world. This would keep Sora single and fall in line with Sora not displaying any feelings for Frak thus far. And yeah, that would be a good message to have in this kids show. I think they probably should have a plotline like that at some point during the series. But I don't think most people have really thought through the implications of doing that specific plot line with these specific main characters of this series. So Sora says, "Hey Frak, I'm sorry, I'm not into you," and Frak is like, "Okay, cool." And then what? We have now established that Frak has unrequited feelings for someone he works with every single day. Do you think that's baggage that these writers are going to unpack particularly well?
Or if I had any additional luck, trying to find the smartest and most attractive member of our team.
But Sora's right here.
And we're left with this plot line with a fair amount of buildup, even at this point, which now ends in a massive anti-climax, and this loose thread of Frak wanting to be in a romantic relationship, but not being in one, and being down on himself because he got rejected. If you want to resolve that tension, you probably want to give him a romantic plot line that does work out, meaning what? Another female side character invented just to get with one of the guys? You really think these creators won't be tempted to give Frak a girl serpentine love interest? You willing to take that risk? Not to mention, a lot of people insisting this plotline is going to happen think so because they believe Sora has picked up on Frak's feelings already and is clearly distancing herself from them because she doesn't like him back. Now, I think that the show has made it pretty clear that she's just oblivious. Again, the writing hasn't exactly been subtle so far, so trying to read into nuance I think is kind of a lost cause.
Okay, weirdo.
But if that is what you think is happening here, and the idea is that this plotline will model how to properly handle rejection to a young audience, then it already completely failed just from Sora's perspective. If you want to let a guy down gently, do not pretend that you do not hear or comprehend his confessions. You should not pretend to be oblivious to get out of things. You need to be honest with your feelings up front so you don't string the guy along for eternity. This interpretation of that plotline isn't a good option.
Baking pies can wait.
If you call that baking.
Please stop talking.
I just don't understand why people are so pessimistic about this ship. These two have so much potential if you just think about it for 2 seconds. Both ostracized by the societies they lived in, chose to abandon systems which they saw as abusing them, and then were pulled out of the deep end by Eren. Sora is this much more cynical figure, adverse to change, and who easily gets down on herself. And Frak is this much more optimistic, roll-with-the-punches extrovert who innately recognizes all the talents and endurance Sora possesses. I like the idea of a long-running will they won't they within our main cast. I like the idea of a romance within our next generation ninja group in general. They deserve one. A well-written one, so like the writing needs to improve from where it is currently, but still, it even has such a great ship name. I know there's been a couple of different names floating around, but I'm sorry, in this case, we do have an objectively correct answer, and that is tectonic shipping. Spelled T-E-C-H, because, like, Sora's power is tech, and, you know, tectonic, Frak's power is quake, which is, like, often caused by tectonic shifts. So it's, like, tectonic. This is one of the best ship names this fandom has ever produced. Like, I feel like this isn't even debatable.
I'm not going to engage in this conversation.
Now, unfortunately, there is one other reason that I've seen people dislike this ship, and that is because Sora is human and Frak is Serpentine. Now, this is all happening in a highly fictionalized fantasy environment, so it's not a one-to-one with reality, but in general, having two characters from different species potentially being in a relationship seems like a very clear parallel to real-life issues surrounding interracial romance. Right? So people having hang-ups around this aspect specifically might have some troubling parallels to hang-ups they may have in real life. Now, luckily, I haven't seen a lot of this objection being just outwardly stated, but it is a bit of an undertone running through a lot of the discussion surrounding the ship. A lot of people seem to be bending over backwards to find any excuse as to why these two definitely, absolutely should not be together. No room for discussion. It is just a bad idea, period. Which, to me, seems like an awfully harsh stance to take if you don't have some sort of underlying biases blocking your tolerance on this topic. I'm not saying some of the arguments against them aren't perfectly reasonable. I firmly agree the writing isn't great, but the fact that the fandom has not only not taken to the ship, but has seemed motivated to actively produce arguments against this ship specifically seems a bit too coincidental to ignore. Not only do I think that Tectonic is still a viable romance idea, I think that Tectonic is an important romance idea. Should it become canon, Tectonic would be Ninjago's first interracial romance plotline to actually play out on screen. All of our central romances which have any significant screen time have been quarantined to their own kind. Humans for humans, and robots for robots, and snakes for snakes even, and then we get to season 13 and there's a whole plotline where there's a woman of a different species, and so she looks kind of conventionally ugly to us humans, and the joke is that she could have feelings for the human protagonist.
Goodbye, my Jay!
Let me be clear about this. The thing they want you to laugh at is not the fact that Jay is already in a relationship, it's that the woman getting in between them is ugly.
Even though you have tiny arms and the ugly human face.
Because she's of a different species. That's the joke. Point being, the original show was not great about this topic, and we get to Dragon's Rising, and you do have Cole and Geo, but they meet off screen and they don't really have a romantic plot line because it's a kid's show and they're both boys, so we can't, it's all so non-committal. This would be our first actual 100% committed depiction of an interspecies romance between main characters that we care about, and so many people are rooting against it, and that makes me sad. Like, are we really sitting here imagining a scene where Sora tells Frak, "Sorry pal, I'm just not interested," and it doesn't at least partially come off like it's because he's a Serpentine? Is that an implication you think it'll be easy to avoid? You think there isn't gonna be a sect of the fandom who chooses to take it that way and celebrates it because it supports their messed up view of the world? Why are we all so insistent that this show's first depiction of catching feelings for someone who looks different than you to be shut down as soon as possible? I get that it's not written well thus far. I get that you personally might think they don't have chemistry at the moment, but it's not like we can walk it back. Sora x Frak has been put on the table, and so with it, all of the implications that it brings. If this relationship falls through, it is going to say things about these topics whether you want it to or not. That's just how these things work. And so even though the writing has not been good so far, I still feel obligated to provide some pushback here. Even with our given factors, I think these two are getting an unfair shake. Personally, I like, at the very least, the idea of our non-human protagonist getting a validating romantic plotline. Frak being our mainline male involved in a romance, that's some, like, borderline inspirational messaging. Even if you look different than all the people around you, your love is valid and has every opportunity of being returned. Maybe the reason that this plotline is such a tired retread of the same same old romance tropes is to prove a point. A point about this snake guy, this interracial couple, also being perfectly able to have a standard cute little love story on par with its more traditional counterparts. It does not have to end in tragedy or heartbreak or incompatibility or messy drama because two different looking people falling in love with each other is perfectly normal. So here we are normalizing it. What is more classic romance in Ninjago than a poorly thought out plotline where the guy falls in love with the girl and has some of the clunkiest dialogue ever written?
You're telling me we're not related?
It fits in perfectly right next to Jaya and Kyler. Mission accomplished. And it is pretty important that we take steps to normalize these things, because we still have a segment of the fandom who is adverse to Frak even becoming a ninja solely because he is Serpentine. Which, yikes.
Yikes.
Look, if you're weirded out by a snake becoming a ninja or dating a pretty girl or being a protagonist, then I think we've been engaging with different franchises here. One of the most common sentiments I see in the marketing around this show is anyone can be a ninja. You can be a ninja. And this is something that the show has been okay at displaying. Dareth sticks around as a ninja, even being crucial to the original ending to the show. Little Nelson carries the honorary ninja title. Mistake shows us that those we think may be adversarial may actually be allies. The show's main glaring blind spot really has been the Serpentine.
Why? You looking to join him?
No, to avoid them.
As much as they like to vindicate the Serpentine as not being innately villainous, actually, they hesitate to include them in a heroic capacity repeatedly.
Ah, the Overlord. Glad we weren't around for that mess.
And Frak is the franchise finally making good on that value judgment. Anyone can be a ninja. If you have a problem with that, I think you've kind of missed the point. We have this whole new show to explain it to you. You know, the one where all of the people from all of the different places are forced to live together and get along, where our found family group only seems to exponentially grow to include all those who need help, where our heroes make a point of helping everyone, even the bad guys. Look, Frak is a good character, and he deserves the screen time he needs to become a great one, because that ability is certainly within him. And if we let that go, if we let Frak become just another side character who had a little spotlight bump for a little bit, and that weird fake out relationship with Sora because nobody liked the thought of them together, then the haters win. The OG Ninjago purists who think that Kai should have been the Green Ninja and Nia should have stayed Samurai X, and anything past season 7 isn't even worth watching because Sam Vincent's voice is too jarring for them, and Cole is dead to them now because he held a boy's hand, and a mainline Serpentine ninja is the show jumping the shark. They all win, and I refuse to live in a world where that's where we end up. I refuse to give in to people who think Ninjago has limits on who it's for. Frak is this show going out on a limb to include someone who doesn't have support. Frak is the show looking at its past and saying, yes, everyone means everyone. I refuse to let Frak be a footnote in Ninjago because Frak is Ninjago. Just wanted to make a positive little video about Snake Boy. Ended up being a lot heavier than I anticipated.
What's a snake? A snake's a viper. A snake's a serpent. A snake's a fer-de-lance. What's a snake? A snake's a boa. A snake's a python. A snake's a brand new dance. And do the snake dance.
Go right there. I knew I was missing something. I knew I was missing something.